Very good evening to all of you once again. I'm ever so thankful to have you all joining us as always. Welcome back. We left off in 2 Kings 2. Elijah has now went up into heaven. He is with the Lord. Even to this day, he is with the Lord. He's made an appearance on earth, though, with Jesus and Moses on Mount Transfiguration, so apparently he's in very good company. But in the meantime, we're still doing Bible study. So we pick up in 2 Kings 3 with the continuation of Elisha succeeding Elijah. The next few chapters is really just going to be dealing with what a great and powerful mighty work that God works through Elijah's successor Elisha. We'll pick up right here. Now Jehoram, the son of Ahab, began to reign over Israel and Samaria the 18th year of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, and reigned 12 years. So Jehoram is the son of Ahab and Jezebel. Jezebel is still alive. Ahab is now dead. And he wrought evil in the sight of the Lord, but not like his father and like his mother, for he put away the image of Baal that his father had made. Apparently, we'll pick up in 2 Kings 10, where Jehu, he steps into the scene. He begins to destroy what is left of the Baal worship. There was apparently a little bit of maybe a temple or two here and there where Jezebel, his mother, could still go and worship Baal. We'll learn about that in chapter 10. Nevertheless, he cleaved unto the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, which made Israel to sin. He departed not therefrom. He regresses right back to worshiping these two calves located in Israel that Jeroboam had made many, many years before. So he gets rid of Baal as far as the nation is concerned, and he begins to enforce what Jeroboam had made, which was these two calves, unto which they believe they're worshiping Jehovah, our God. They believe that through these calves they are worshiping the Almighty, which completely throws me for a loop, because if they knew the story of Moses and how he came down from the mount, he had the Ten Commandments, he's seen the Israelites with this golden calf that his brother Aaron had made for them, and it angered him to such a degree that many deaths come from that. He breaks the Ten Commandments. He also shatters the golden calf idol that they had and mixes it into the water and forces them to drink it. So obviously, this calf worship is not a good thing, but this also leads me into my next point. Hosea 4:6 reads this, My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will also reject thee, that thou shalt be no priest to me, seeing thou hast forgotten the law of thy God. I will also forget thy children. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. These Israelites, much like probably 99% of the world, they don't read their Bibles. They don't know anything hardly about their history. They know the main tales of it. They know about Noah's Ark and Adam and Eve. They know all of these, but they don't know the depth of it. And therefore, they're destroyed due to this. And Mesha, king of Moab, was a sheepmaster, and rendered unto the king of Israel 100,000 lambs and 100,000 rams with the wool. Once again, right here is Moab. It's right in between the kingdom of the Ammonites and the Edomites. Over here is Israel. Right here is the southern kingdom of Judah. And Moab was being ruled by the northern kingdom of Israel. Now they began to rebel. This Mesha, king of Moab, begins to rebel. He would send a tribute, a yearly payment to Ahab, the father of Jehoram. But once that Ahab dies and Jehoram is now left, he ceases that. But it came to pass when Ahab was dead that the king of Moab rebelled against the king of Israel. There was a stone discovered some 150 years ago called the Moabite stone. You can look this up for yourself. And it was actually formed back in the time that we're talking about right here, almost 3,000 years ago. This stone is almost 3,000 years old, and it actually makes mention of this Mesha, king of the Moabites. Talks about how he had victory over the Israelites and such, is very pro Moab, actually. But on this stone, it gives credit unto the god that they worshipped at that time named Chemosh. Now, who was Chemosh? According to Wikipedia, Chemosh, therefore, was in general a deity of the same nature as Baal. On critical occasions, a human sacrifice was considered necessary to secure his favor. So much like Moloch, Baal, all these demon deities that they worshiped back then, pretty much all of them would require at very desperate times human sacrifice. Human sacrifice was thought to be the greatest of deeds that you could do for your gods back then. And if you'll recall how whenever Abraham has Isaac and he's about to sacrifice him, the Lord actually stops him from doing that. God doesn't like this human sacrifice stuff, and the Lord is the only one in whom never requires such a thing. As a matter of fact, it's quite the reverse. God gave his son for us instead of asking us to give our sons to him. And King Jehoram went out of Samaria the same time and numbered all Israel. Whenever it says that they would number Israel or their people, that was mainly to go to war. Primarily, that was, let's count how many that's going to be in our army so that we can weigh in the balance our chances against this other nation, in this case, Moab. And Jehoram, the king of Israel, went and sent to Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, saying, The king of Moab hath rebelled against me. Wilt thou go with me against Moab to battle? And he said, I will go up. I am as thou art, my people as thy people, and my horses as thy horses. So we see right here the king of Judah, Jehoshaphat, this was a persistent problem with him. He was a godly king and a good king. He feared the Lord very much. Quite the opposite from Jehoram and all of these others in the northern kingdom. But unlike Jehoshaphat, his father Asa, who was also a godly king, he went to war against the northern kingdom. He never allied himself with Baasha or any of them at that time. Never did. But we see his son Jehoshaphat constantly wanting to ally with these wicked kings. And it's thought by many that the primary reason why Jehoram destroyed the idols of Baal was to getting the good graces of Jehoshaphat to try to make him an ally, because Jehoshaphat didn't like this Baal worship, this idolatry. And Jehoram said, Which way shall we go up? To Jehoshaphat. And Jehoshaphat answered, The way through the wilderness of Edom. Obviously, the reason why Jehoram is asking, which way shall we go up, to Jehoshaphat has been a king now much longer than Jehoram. Jehoram doesn't really know what he's doing. So the king of Israel went, and the king of Judah, and the king of Edom, and they fetched a compass of 7 days' journey, and there was no water for the host and for the cattle that followed them. So this is how that they would have done it. Israel would have joined forces with Judah. Once that they crossed through the south unto the kingdom of Edom, Edom was actually primarily under the control of Judah at this time. Even though it talks about a king, he wasn't a king in the sorts of any kind of personal sovereignty. So they're coming down here, and all these three kingdoms meet up, and they ally in Edom to go to war against Moab. And they find that there is no water down there. They were expecting to get down here and find water, but apparently there's been this famine of sorts. And the king of Israel said, Alas, that the Lord hath called these three kings together to deliver them into the hand of Moab. Really? The Lord has called these three kings together? John Gill said this, And the king of Israel said, Alas, lamenting their sad case as being desperate, and the rather he was the more concerned as he was the principal who had drawn the other kings into this affair, though he throws it upon the Lord and his providence. It's Jehoram's fault that they even gathered together in the first place. Now he's blaming God, which so many of these lackluster or just outright non-believers do. They just blame God automatically. I've even met outright atheists in whom they blame God when something happens to them. But Jehoshaphat said, "Is there not here a prophet of the Lord, that we may inquire of the Lord by him?" And one of the king of Israel's servants answered and said, "Here is Elisha, the son of Shaphat, which poured water on the hands of Elijah." It's believed that Elisha just happened to be close. It's like the Lord may have either led him down through there or led the armies to him. We're not certain, but it's widely believed that Elisha, he stayed close to the army or the army was coming close to him. Either way, he wasn't very far from the camp. And Jehoshaphat said, "The word of the Lord is with him." So the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat and the king of Edom went down to him. 3 kings went down to Elisha. I really like Charles Ellicott's comments on this. From the royal tents, which were probably pitched on an eminence so as to overlook the camp, the 3 kings go to consult the prophet as persons of ordinary station might do. This shows the estimation in which Elisha was held. Indeed. So already at this time, the Lord has exalted this prophet Elisha, and to the point where kings come to him. He doesn't go to them, they come to him. And Elisha said unto the king of Israel, "What have I to do with thee? Get thee to the prophets of thy father, and to the prophets of thy mother." And the king of Israel said unto him, "Nay, for the Lord hath called these 3 kings together to deliver them into the hand of Moab." So Elisha is a bit combative. He's probably been somewhat persecuted by this Jehoram, this king of Israel, which is where he would have primarily remained in the northern kingdom. Matthew Poole actually added a little bit more to this rebuke of Elijah to the king of Israel. "To the calves, which thou after thy father's example dost worship, and to the Baals, which thy mother yet worshipeth by thy permission, and to which thy heart is yet inclined, though thou hast destroyed one of his images for politic reasons, let these idols whom thou worshipest in thy prosperity now help thee in thy distress." And Elisha said, "As the Lord of hosts liveth, before whom I stand, surely, were it not that I regard the presence of Jehoshaphat the king of Judah, I would not look toward thee nor see thee." He's speaking to the king of Israel. He says, if it wasn't for the king of Judah, I would not talk to neither you nor the Edomite king. None of you. But now bring me a minstrel. And it came to pass when the minstrel played that the hand of the Lord came upon him. A minstrel is a musician, someone who would play a harp for them. And there's quite a lesson in this. Once again, Matthew Poole said this. This he requires, someone to play the harp for him. This he requires, that his mind, which had been disturbed and inflamed with holy anger at the sight of wicked Jehoram, might be composed and cheered and united within itself, and that he might be excited to the more fervent prayer to God, and joyfully praising him, whereby he was prepared to receive the prophetical announcement. John Trapp said, the way to be filled with the Spirit is to edify ourselves by psalms and hymns and spiritual songs. So we can read from Elisha wanting a musician to play a harp for him in order to soothe his anger so that he can be in better contact with the Lord. We can see a few things. Anger, I believe, may shut off one's fellowship with God, at least momentarily, until one calms down. I think that the Lord likes dealing with a peaceful spirit, a broken spirit, but one that's of anger and resentment. I don't think that the Lord can work much through. But it even goes a little bit further than that. There's a lot more to learn from this. Joseph Benson said, those that desire communion with God must keep their spirits quiet and serene. All hurry of spirits and all turbulent passions make us unfit for divine visitations. This is the reason why I believe that all this madness that happens inside of the church, I don't think that it's of God at all. I've been in services like this, and I refuse to partake in it. It appears demonic. it's this Kundalini spirit type of worship unto which the Hindus do constantly. You can't tell a difference in between the two services, a Hindu worship service and a Christian worship service like this. It's just madness. So once that this musician comes in and he plays for Elisha, then Elisha says, "Thus saith the Lord, make this valley full of ditches. For thus saith the Lord, ye shall not see wind, neither shall ye see rain, yet that valley shall be filled with water, that you may drink, both ye and your cattle and your beast." So they would not see wind, nor rain, nor any kind of weather that would cause these ditches in which God is commanding these armies to build or to dig. We see that they'll not see any rain or wind or any movement of the weather, but there'll be water in the ditches that will keep them from dehydration, from dying, ultimately. But Matthew Henry said this: "We need not inquire whence the water came. God is not tied to second causes. They that sincerely seek for the dew of God's grace shall have it, and by it be made more than conquerors." So Elisha goes on, "And this is but a light thing in the sight of the Lord. He will deliver the Moabites also into your hand. And ye shall smite every fenced city, and every choice city, and shall fell every good tree, and stop all wells of water, and mar every good piece of land with stones." So these kings come down to Elisha, and they're asking, "Will the Lord help us not die? Give us some water or food or something." And the Lord does far more. He goes above and beyond what they're asking, and telling them that not only will I give you water, but I will also give you victory over the Moabites. You will go on and conquer them. And I believe right there is the whole purpose behind all of this happening. These three kings, Moab rebelling, all of this happening. It's to show these three nations which is Israel, Judah, and Edom, show all of them who is the true God, and how all of their little false idols are nothing. He says, "I will give you water." Not Baal, not Moloch, not Chemosh, none of these. He says, "I will." And God does this repeatedly. And perhaps they all were just truly moved to go to war with Moab. But the Lord is using this occasion through one man to show them he is the true God. "And it came to pass in the morning, when the meat offering was offered, that, behold, there came water by the way of Edom, and the country was filled with water. And when all the Moabites heard that the kings were come up to fight against them, they gathered all that were able to put on armor, and upward, and stood in the border. And they rose up early in the morning, and the sun shone upon the water, and the Moabites saw the water on the other side as red as blood." So they are seeing this water that the Lord had sent. Apparently they had built a lot of ditches, or dug a lot of ditches. And these Moabites were seeing it completely different from the ones in whom God was blessing. The very waters that God was using to bless the allied armies, he is also using for the destruction of Moab. And not only that, they see this water as blood. They don't even see it in reality. So I believe that also goes to show how non-believers can have such a distorted perception of the true reality without God. They're just blind, that they see blood for water and water for blood. "And the Moabites said, This is blood, the kings are surely slain, and they have smitten one another. Now therefore Moab to the spoil." So they believe that all the allies got mad at one another and they just killed one another, and then the rest fled. Which clearly goes to show the omniscience of God, how God knew that if it actually rained and he caused wind to come by, and there was a lot of weather happening, and there was this big storm, then they would probably have reckoned that that was all just water. But no rain happening and water just appearing in the camp, then this threw the Moabites off. They said, well, they're obviously dehydrated. There's no water down there. They're all going to die. So whenever they see this, the sun reflecting off of it, they believe that it's completely incredible the way that God did this. And when they came to the camp of Israel, the Israelites rose up and smote the Moabites so that they fled before them. But they went forward, smiting the Moabites even in their country. And they beat down the cities, and on every good piece of land cast every man his stone, and filled it. And they stopped all the wells of water, and felled all the good trees. Only in Kirheseth left they the stones thereof. Howbeit the slingers went about it, and smote it. And when the king of Moab saw that the battle was too sore for him, he took with him 700 men that drew swords to break through even unto the king of Edom, but they could not. So this one last push from the Moabite king failed, which left the Moabite king in such a desperate situation that we actually end the chapter with this. Then the Moabite king took his eldest son that should have reigned in his stead, and offered him for a burnt offering upon the wall. And there was great indignation against Israel, and they departed from him, and returned to their own land. So this Moabite king actually sacrificed his eldest son, the prince of Moab, in order for appeasement of Chemosh, his false god. Matthew Henry said, "In Satan's service, and at his suggestion, such horrid deeds have been done as cause the natural feelings of the heart to shudder. Like the king of Moab sacrificing his son, it is well not to urge the worst of men to extremities. We should rather leave them to the judgment of God." So upon the sight of seeing this Moabite king sacrificing his eldest son upon the wall, apparently some anger arose in the camp of the Israelites, and they turned back. All the allies turned back, and they just left the Moabites alone. Albert Barnes said this about it: "Either the Israelites were indignant with themselves, or the men of Judah and the Edomites were indignant at the Israelites for having caused the pollution of this sacrifice, and the siege was relinquished." So the allies could have been very angry at one another at the sight of this. But at this point, Moab is pretty much in ruins. Their army is decimated. There's nothing else that can be done. They're no more of a threat to any of these mightier nations now. But that is the end of 2 Kings 3. Lord willing, we will pick up tomorrow in chapter 4. God of peace, love, and mercy be with you all. Amen.